Hello, and welcome to another episode of the B2B Leadership Podcast. My name is Nils Vinje, and today I'm going to share with you the leadership lesson I learned from failing as a Xerox sales rep. Now, up to the point where I worked for Xerox, I always struggled to find where I fit in the professional world. And I started my career as a software engineer. I was absolutely terrible at this role. In fact, I should have been fired. I was very close several times, but I should have been fired because I was absolutely horrendous at this. Now, I also swung to the other end of the spectrum and became a Xerox sales rep. And here's how that happened. So I convinced myself that I should be in sales. There was a few roles that I got involved with that featured partnering with the sales teams and doing demonstrations. And I was really good at these because I understood technical details, but I could also communicate really well and really enjoyed building relationships with people. So initially, I wanted to be a sales engineer. I thought it'd be really cool to partner with sales and sell services and solutions to clients. Now, I thought to myself at this point, well, if I'm really technical and I love the relationship side, why don't I just become a sales rep? Why do I have to be the sales engineer and play the supporting role? So then I thought, okay, well, if I want to be the sales rep and if I want to get into sales, I should find the best training I possibly can. And Xerox is always known for having the absolute best sales training. There are many, many, many success stories of successful leaders who went through Xerox sales training. So I got a job with what was called a Xerox agency, and we went to work. And this was an agency that covered a part of Los Angeles. All they did was sell Xerox, and they were like a licensed group from Xerox. So the training after I joined initially consisted of shadowing other reps. And there was a weekly call for when new people joined from that agency or other agencies. And that was run by the corporate Xerox. Now, I honestly had no idea what I was doing. But each and every day I showed up, I shadowed the other reps, I made calls following a script. There was a list of numbers I had to call and there were some scripts. And then I also went door to door selling copiers. If you've ever done anything door to door, you know it's kind of an interesting experience, especially when businesses are involved. So this one time, I was going floor to floor, which we were needed to do, through a building that was a quote-unquote no soliciting building. And what this meant is that the building was known and had big signs all over the place that it was not a place that you go door to door selling. But it was in my territory, and I was told to go through that building and collect the business cards of the businesses I visited so they could make sure that I actually did it. And when I asked about the no soliciting policy, they essentially said, don't worry about it. Just go start knocking on doors and go get some business. I thought this was a little strange, but I went along with it. Now, this was the beginning. So I snuck into the building, kind of just got by the security guards. They didn't see me, thankfully, and I went door to door. And I almost had security called on me because everybody knows it's a no soliciting building. So this was just something that made me feel uncomfortable, but at the time, I didn't say no, and I wasn't entirely sure what to do because I was still trying to figure out my job and figure out how to do it well. Another time, I was knocking on doors, I got into the office, and the person at the front desk made it an absolute point to show that they were better than I was and that I was absolutely nobody. I mean, smaller than nobody. And this was a really, really tough experience, but it's one of those things that, the war stories are chalked up to the, incredible experiences that you have where people make you feel bad, but then somehow you overcome it in the end. Unfortunately, it didn't really happen. I got a lot of the bad stories, not a lot of the good ones. So I made it through the first month with this company in this role, and everything was okay. Now, the second month was tough. And by the third month, everything started to fall apart. Now, the following months were absolutely gut-wrenching. I mean, I would wake up in the morning and try to psych myself up. I had to psych myself up just to get up in the morning to get ready and go to work. Now, this was a major sign, but again, I was so committed to what I had decided I wanted to do that I stopped paying attention to myself. And when I got home at night, I was contemplating all the ways that I could get out of having to go back to the job the next day, and all the ways I could get out of having to try to go into no solicitation buildings and go door to door and be told that I was less than nobody by people who I've never met before. Now, I only ended up staying at that job for about 6 months. And after I left that job, I felt incredibly depressed. I felt like a complete and utter failure. I wondered endlessly about what I was going to do. I had been through a lot of different jobs up to this point. I thought this was going to be it. I thought this was going to show me how to be successful in other positions that would be sales oriented in the future, because that's what Xerox does. It trains incredible salespeople. And I struggled. I really, really struggled. This was a very dark period for a while for me, and it was really, really difficult. But I got help through working with a therapist. And little by little, I began to pull out of the tailspin that I was in, and I started to plot a new path forward. But I didn't get through this difficult time by myself. My wife was there and 100% supportive, and I couldn't have gotten through it without her. My parents were also 100% supportive, and I'm forever grateful for their support. Right? So the powerful lesson that I learned from a leadership perspective is that no matter how bad your brain wants something, if it doesn't align with who you are or who you want to become, it's not going to work. And I'm not saying that you need to play it safe or not challenge yourself or take on a different role. That's not it at all. What I'm saying is that when your work is out of alignment with who you are, there's going to be trouble. And the work I was doing as a Xerox sales rep was incredibly out of alignment with who I was. And that alignment, misalignment, was probably pretty, if I'm honest, it was there from almost the very beginning. I'm talking the first week or two. I could feel something inside of me that didn't work. And I ignored that feeling and I pushed it deep. I pushed it down. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to pay attention to you because I know what I want here. And I'm going to be successful in this no matter what, which was great from a mindset perspective, but it also tore me up inside because I went so far against the grain of who I was as a person that it took a long time and some therapy to get it back. So instead of only looking at what you want, also check for alignment before jumping in headfirst as I did, or check for alignment continuously. Are you enjoying the work that you're in? Do you feel passion for getting up every day? Do you want to go and be with your team every single day? If the answer is no, then you got to check and be honest with yourself about where you are and whether or not you are really doing yourself a disservice by staying in the position just like I did when I was with Xerox for that 6 months. I mean, I only lasted 6 months. It wasn't very long in the grand scheme, but it took me exponentially longer than that to completely come out of the feelings that I acquired during that 6-month intensive period. So the interesting thing is that I went on to have a very successful sales career as a leadership coach and a consultant. So the fact that I couldn't sell Xerox copiers didn't mean that I couldn't sell anything. It just meant that that particular role at that point in my life did not align with who I was as a person, what I offered, and the value I brought. And therefore, it completely fell apart and tore me apart in the process. Now, on the flip side, many years later, I was very successful and have been and continue to be very successful on the sales side. I'm completely comfortable in a sales environment. Right? It's fascinating what you can do and adapt to, but the work I do today is aligned with who I am. The Xerox work was 100% not aligned with who I was, and that's why it tore me apart. So alignment is key, and it's something that I now check early and very often in everything I do. So my recommendation is that if you are not 100% aligned with your work today, maybe it's your company, maybe it's the product, maybe it's the team, maybe it's the role, whatever it is, check for alignment. If you don't feel 100% good about the value you're adding, the recognition you are receiving, the work that you're doing, it's going to show. It's going to show externally, but more importantly, it's going to show internally. And if you're not paying attention to what it's showing you internally, you're going to run the risk of ending up in the same place that I did by pushing those feelings down and having them come out at a later time in a place that is going to throw you even further into a tailspin, just like a story I shared. So I hope this story is helpful for you in the event that you should ever find yourself doing work that is not in alignment with who you are. And if you ever need help on the alignment side, especially in the leadership world, check out the B2B Leaders Academy at B2B, letter B, number 2, letter B, leadersacademy.com. And hopefully I can help you become a more confident and effective leader.